You're staring at four colors right now, and your hand hesitates before choosing one. Your finger hovers over the screen, uncertain, maybe a little nervous, because somewhere deep inside you already know this isn't just about picking a pretty shade. This is about something you've been hiding from yourself, something you've carefully tucked away in the corners of your psyche, behind all those carefully constructed personas you present to the world every single day. Carl Jung understood that the unconscious mind speaks in symbols, in images, in colors that bypass your rational defenses and go straight to the truth of who you actually are beneath all the masks. And right now, in this simple moment of choosing between purple, blue, red, and gold, your soul is about to tell on itself. You see, most people go through life completely unaware that every preference, every choice, every seemingly meaningless decision is actually a confession from the deepest parts of themselves. The color that draws you in, the one that makes something inside you whisper, "Yes, that's mine." That color is holding up a mirror to the shadow parts of yourself you've been too afraid to look at directly. Jung spent his entire life studying how the unconscious communicates with us through symbols, and he discovered that color isn't just aesthetic, it's psychological, it's spiritual, it's the language your soul uses when words are too limiting and too exposed. And what you're about to discover might make you uncomfortable, might make you want to look away, might make you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. But that discomfort is precisely where your transformation begins. Because the truth is, you're not here by accident. Something brought you to this moment, this test, this opportunity to see yourself with brutal honesty, and that something is your own unconscious mind, trying desperately to be seen, to be heard, to be integrated into your conscious awareness so you can finally become whole. Let's talk about what really happens when you choose a color without overthinking it. When you let your instinct guide you instead of your carefully calculated rational mind. Jung called this the psyche's way of revealing what consciousness tries to hide. You walk through life believing you know yourself, believing you understand your motivations and desires, but the unconscious is always 10 steps ahead, always working beneath the surface, always trying to show you the parts of yourself you've disowned and rejected because they didn't fit the image you wanted to project to the world. When you look at purple, blue, red, and gold, you're not just seeing pigments and light wavelengths. You're seeing archetypal energies that resonate with different aspects of your psychological structure. Purple speaks to the mystic in you, the part that knows there's something beyond the material world, the part that yearns for transcendence and spiritual depth. It's the color of the person who feels different, who doesn't quite fit into conventional boxes, who senses dimensions of reality that others dismiss as fantasy or delusion. If purple called to you immediately, if it made something inside you recognize itself, then you're carrying the archetype of the seeker, the one who lives between worlds, who feels most alive in the space where matter meets spirit. You're the person who gets overwhelmed in crowds because you're absorbing energies others don't even notice, who needs silence and solitude not as escape but as necessity, who feels God or the universe or whatever you want to call that ineffable presence more intensely than you feel the solid ground beneath your feet. But here's what Jung would want you to understand. This isn't just about being sensitive or spiritual, it's about the burden of consciousness itself. You see too much, you feel too much, you understand too much, and that understanding isolates you because most people are content to live on the surface while you're constantly diving into the depths. Your challenge isn't to become more normal or more grounded. Your challenge is to accept that your path is fundamentally different, and that difference is your gift to the world, even when it feels like a curse. Blue draws a different type of soul, the one who craves order in chaos, who needs to make sense of the senselessness, who believes that if they can just think clearly enough, analyze deeply enough, understand completely enough, then everything will fall into place and the anxiety will finally stop. If blue resonated with you, If it felt like home in a way you can't quite articulate, then you're living primarily through your thinking function. And you've probably spent your entire life trying to rationalize emotions that can't be rationalized, trying to logic your way out of feelings that demand to be felt. Jung would say you've over-identified with the intellect as a defense mechanism against the vulnerability of emotional truth. You build walls made of words and concepts and theories, and those walls keep you safe, but they also keep you alone. The blue personality is the one who lies awake at 3 in the morning, analyzing every conversation from the day, replaying every interaction, wondering what people really meant, what they were really thinking, whether they really liked you or were just being polite. You're terrified of being misunderstood, but you're equally terrified of being truly seen, because being seen means being vulnerable. And vulnerability feels like death to someone who has learned to survive through control and comprehension. Your mind is both your greatest asset and your deepest prison. It protects you from the chaos of raw emotion, but it also prevents you from experiencing the very connection you desperately crave. And here's the paradox Jung would want you to sit with. The more you try to understand life, the more life eludes you, because some truths can only be known through surrender, through letting go of the need to know, through allowing yourself to be swept away by forces larger than your capacity to categorize them. Red is the color of the warrior, the survivor, the one who has learned that the world is not safe and that safety comes through strength, through action, through refusing to be a victim ever again. If red grabbed your attention, if it ignited something primal in your gut, then you're carrying a lot of fire, a lot of unprocessed anger, a lot of passion that terrifies you as much as it empowers you. Jung would look at your red and see the shadow in its most raw form, all the rage and desire and aggression that society taught you to suppress and deny. You're the person who has been told your whole life to calm down, to be less intense, to tone it down, to not be so much, and every time you heard that message, you pushed another part of yourself into the darkness where it fermented and grew stronger. Your red isn't just anger, it's life force itself. It's the refusal to be diminished. It's the absolute certainty that you deserve to take up space in this world, even when everyone around you is trying to make you smaller. But here's what happens when you reject your own fire. It doesn't disappear, it turns inward. It becomes depression and self-sabotage and mysterious illnesses that doctors can't quite explain. Your body is holding all that unexpressed energy, all that unlived life, all those words you didn't say, and boundaries you didn't enforce, and truths you didn't speak because you were too afraid of being too much. The red personality is living in a constant state of internal war, fighting against themselves, punishing themselves for having needs and wants and desires, trying to be good and acceptable and palatable when their soul is screaming for permission to be wild and free and unapologetically alive. Jung would tell you that your healing doesn't come from taming the fire. It comes from learning to channel it, to direct it toward creation instead of destruction, to let it burn away everything false in your life until only truth remains. Gold is the rarest choice, the one that reveals a soul who has been through the fire and emerged transformed, who understands that suffering is the price of consciousness and consciousness is the gift of suffering. If gold spoke to you, if it felt like recognition of something ancient and eternal within you, then you're carrying the archetype of the alchemist, the one who knows that everything in life, especially the darkest and most painful experiences, contains the seed of its own transformation. You don't see life in simple terms of good and bad, right and wrong. You see the divine intelligence operating through all of it, using everything as material for your evolution. The gold personality has usually walked through hell and came out the other side not bitter but softer, not hardened but more open, not cynical but more wise. You understand that God or the universe or your higher self, whatever language feels true to you, speaks most clearly through difficulty, through crisis, through the moments when everything you thought you knew falls apart and you're forced to rebuild yourself from scratch. Jung would say you've individuated, you've integrated the opposites within yourself. You've made peace with the fact that you contain multitudes, that you're capable of both tremendous light and tremendous darkness, and that wholeness comes not from choosing one over the other, but from accepting both as essential parts of the human experience. Your challenge isn't transformation itself. You've already transformed many times. Your challenge is learning to trust the process, to stop trying to speed it up or skip steps, to honor the slow unfolding of your soul's journey, even when your mind wants immediate answers and instant relief. But here's where this gets really interesting, where Jung's psychology becomes less about personality types and more about the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. You didn't just randomly pick a color based on superficial preference. Your unconscious mind, that vast intelligence operating beneath your awareness, guided you toward the symbol that most accurately reflects your current psychological state and your soul's deepest needs. The color you chose is showing you what your psyche is working on right now, what it's trying to integrate, what it's calling you to acknowledge and embrace. If you found yourself drawn to purple when you're usually more of a red person, or blue when you're typically drawn to gold, pay attention to that shift, because your unconscious is signaling a change, a new phase of development, a different aspect of yourself that needs attention and cultivation. Jung discovered that the psyche is always compensating, always trying to balance itself, always pushing us toward wholeness, even when we resist. If you've been too much in your head, too analytical, too controlled, your unconscious will start pulling you toward the red, toward passion and embodiment and raw feeling. If you've been too reactive, too emotional, too scattered, your psyche will guide you toward blue, toward thinking and structure and mindful awareness. The color is a message from your soul about what you need right now for your next level of growth and integration. Now pause here for a moment, because I need to ask you something, and I really want you to think about your honest answer. When you looked at those 4 colors, which one made your heart beat a little faster? Which one created a subtle sense of recognition or maybe even resistance? Because sometimes the color we're most drawn to is actually the color we're most afraid of. The one that represents the part of ourselves we've been working so hard to keep hidden. Drop a comment right now and tell me your color and one word that describes how it made you feel. Just write something like purple, longing, or red, afraid, or blue, safe, or gold, seen. Your answer might seem simple, but it's actually profound. It's your unconscious speaking directly, bypassing all your defenses and rationalizations. And when you share it, you're not just helping me understand you better, you're helping other people who chose the same color feel less alone in their experience. You're creating connection through honesty. You're contributing to a collective understanding that we're all struggling with the same fundamental questions about identity and meaning and purpose. So go ahead, comment your color and your word. And then let's continue this journey together into the deeper layers of what your choice reveals. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. Because here's what most people don't understand about Jung's approach to psychology. He wasn't interested in making you feel better. He was interested in making you more conscious. And consciousness, real consciousness, the kind that actually transforms your life, is often painful and uncomfortable and disorienting. It requires you to look at the parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding, to acknowledge the truths you've been denying, to accept responsibility for the ways you've been complicit in your own suffering. When Jung talked about shadow work, he wasn't talking about some abstract therapeutic concept. He was talking about the brutal, necessary process of integrating everything you've rejected about yourself back into your conscious awareness. Your shadow isn't just the bad stuff, it's everything you decided wasn't acceptable, everything that didn't fit the image you wanted to project, everything that threatened your sense of being a good person. And that shadow is intimately connected to the color you chose, because color reveals what you're hiding even from yourself. The purple person is hiding their weirdness, their mystical experiences, their intuitive knowing that doesn't fit into rational frameworks. The blue person is hiding their emotions, their needs, their desperate desire for connection beneath layers of intellectual superiority. The red person is hiding their anger, their desire, their raw animal nature that society deemed inappropriate. The gold person is hiding their wounds, their ongoing struggle, their fear that they haven't actually transcended anything and they're still just as broken as they ever were. Your color is showing you where your work is. What part of yourself is demanding integration? What aspect of your being is tired of living in exile? And the beautiful, terrifying thing is that once you see it, once you really acknowledge it, you can't unsee it. Your consciousness has expanded, and there's no going back to the comfortable unconsciousness you were living in before. This is why so many people resist self-knowledge, why they distract themselves with endless entertainment and busy work and surface-level relationships, because deep down they know that real self-knowledge comes with a price. And that price is the death of who you thought you were. Jung called this the death of the ego, and it's not a metaphor, it's a psychological reality that feels as devastating as any physical death. The person you've been pretending to be, the persona you've crafted so carefully, that person has to die so the person you actually are can finally be born. And your color choice is the beginning of that death. The first crack in the facade, the initial whisper from your soul that says it's time. You're ready. You can't keep living this lie anymore. Think about the spiritual dimension of this for a moment, because Jung understood that psychology and spirituality are inseparable, that the psyche is ultimately the arena where divine and human meet. When you chose your color, you weren't just revealing your personality, you were revealing your soul's particular flavor of divinity, the unique way that God, or consciousness, or universal intelligence expresses itself through your individual existence. Purple souls carry the mystical, the transcendent, the capacity to perceive dimensions beyond the physical. Blue souls carry the sacred intellect, the ability to find God in logic and pattern and universal truth. Red souls carry the divine feminine and masculine power, the creative and destructive forces that birth and end worlds. Gold souls carry the integrated whole, the union of opposites, the embodied divinity that has walked through the fire and emerged as gold. Your color isn't limiting you, it's showing you your spiritual assignment in this lifetime, the particular way you're meant to participate in the unfolding of consciousness. And when you resist your color, when you try to be something other than what you are, you're not just creating psychological suffering, you're violating your spiritual purpose. You're refusing the gift your soul chose before you were born. This might sound heavy or overwhelming or too intense, and if it does, that's probably because you're feeling the truth of it hitting something deep inside you that hasn't been touched in a long time. That discomfort is good, that resistance is necessary, because it means you're finally getting close to something real, something that matters, something that could actually change your life if you let it. Jung believed that most people live their entire lives without ever becoming conscious, without ever waking up to who they really are, and they die having never truly lived. They spend decades performing, pretending, following scripts written by family and culture and society, and in the end, they look back with regret and wonder who they might have been if they'd had the courage to be themselves. Your color is giving you that courage. It's showing you the door. It's offering you a way out of the prison of false identity. But you have to be willing to walk through that door, and walking through means letting go of everything you've been clinging to for safety and certainty and approval. Before we go deeper, I want you to do something for me, for yourself really, because this video is already changing you whether you realize it or not. Hit that like button right now, not because I need validation, but because that small action is a declaration from your conscious mind to your unconscious mind that you're ready, you're willing to do the work, you're committed to becoming more aware, even when awareness is painful. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that too, because this isn't just a random video you stumbled across. This is the beginning of a journey, and there's so much more to explore together. This channel is for people who want real transformation, who are tired of surface-level self-help that makes you feel good temporarily but changes nothing fundamentally. We're building a community of conscious souls who support each other through the terrifying, beautiful process of becoming who we actually are. Now let's talk about what happens next, after you've identified your color and started to understand what it reveals about your psyche. The real work, the work that Jung dedicated his entire life to understanding and facilitating, is the integration process. It's not enough to just know you're purple or blue or red or gold. You have to actually live it, embody it, allow it to reshape your entire relationship with yourself and the world. For the purple person, this means giving yourself permission to be spiritual without apology, to trust your intuition even when it contradicts logic, to explore the mystical dimensions of existence without fearing that others will think you're crazy. It means finding communities and practices that honor your sensitivity instead of pathologizing it, that recognize your depth as a gift rather than a burden. Your integration work is about grounding your spirituality in practical reality, about learning to function in the material world while staying connected to the transcendent, about becoming a bridge between dimensions instead of getting lost in either one. For the blue person, integration means developing your feeling function, learning to value emotion as much as thought, allowing yourself to be messy and illogical and vulnerable. It means recognizing that your intellect, brilliant as it is, can't solve the problem of being human, that some things can only be known through feeling and experiencing and surrendering control. Your work is to drop from your head into your heart, to let tears come when they need to come, to say I don't know without shame, to accept that connection requires risk and risk requires emotional exposure. For the red person, integration is about channeling your fire into creative expression, into passionate, purposeful action, into standing up for yourself and others without apology. It means learning to express anger cleanly instead of explosively or suppressing it until it becomes toxic. It means owning your desire, your sexuality, your hunger for life, and directing that energy toward building something meaningful rather than destroying yourself in the process. Your work is to become the warrior who fights for love rather than from fear, who uses strength to protect rather than dominate. For the gold person, integration means accepting that you'll never be finished, that transformation is a lifelong process, that even your wisdom contains blind spots and areas for growth. It means staying humble while honoring how far you've come, staying open while trusting what you know, staying curious while standing in your truth. Your work is to share your light without burning others with your intensity, to guide without controlling, to embody integrated wholeness while respecting that others are at different stages of their journey. The color you chose is inviting you into a specific relationship with yourself, a way of being that honors your psychological structure and spiritual purpose simultaneously. And the invitation is always uncomfortable because growth is uncomfortable, change is uncomfortable. Becoming conscious is fundamentally uncomfortable. But the alternative is remaining unconscious, living a half-life, dying without ever really living, and that's a tragedy Jung spent his career trying to help people avoid. Your soul chose this color, chose this moment, chose this awakening, and it chose it precisely because you're ready, even if you don't feel ready, even if you're terrified, even if every part of you wants to close this video and go back to the comfortable numbness of distraction. You're here because something in you is calling for more, for truth, for authenticity, for a life that actually means something beyond surface accomplishments and social validation. And that calling is the voice of your deepest self, your soul, God speaking through your unique existence, inviting you to come home to who you really are. The journey isn't easy, but it's the only journey that matters, the only journey that leads to real peace and real fulfillment and real love. Your color is the beginning, the doorway, the first step on a path that will transform everything if you let it, and I'm here walking beside you, reminding you that you're not alone, that millions of souls are waking up right now, that we're all in this together, that your courage to become conscious contributes to the collective awakening of humanity itself.